This is a patient with cataract surgery 10 years ago with the placement of a Restor implant. He's suffering from poor vision and glare. The implant has really severe subsurface nano glistenings, and he's been treated with Lasik years ago prior to his cataract surgery. We've made a decision to exchange the Restor lens that has the glistenings for a Technis Symfony toric lens to improve his refractive outcome and to eliminate the quality of vision issues that he has. Here we're injecting dispersive viscoelastic through a 26 gauge Lasik cannula between the anterior and posterior capsule, which are fused to try to separate them in this area. We've come in over the optic, under the anterior capsule, lifted the anterior capsule up a little bit, and are injecting the dispersive viscoelastic here, trying to free the lens up a little bit. We'll now make a 2.75 millimeter clear cornea incision with the keratome in a self-sealing fashion. We're now switching to cohesive viscoelastic and injecting under the anterior capsule rim, and this will create a wave of dissection that will help open up the capsular bag, free up the lens so that we can remove it. There's an air bubble behind the lens, but that won't create any problem. That will be easily removed. So now we've been able to free up the posterior capsule from the anterior capsule 360 degrees. I'm now going to remove this air bubble, and now we'll try to dissect the haptics out of the fornix of the capsular bag. So here we're using a bimanual approach. The capsular rhexis is pretty small, so we want to be careful not to put too much traction on the zonules as we manipulate the lens up out of the bag. And I made a decision here that the haptic closest to me is fibrosed in, so we're just going to go ahead and cut that so we can deal with that later. And this will give us more mobility and freedom to manipulate the optic up past the small rhexis opening and free up this distal haptic. So now we're injecting viscoelastic. We'll grab the haptic at the haptic-optic junction, and we're able to pull this haptic up out of the fornix of the capsular bag without too much resistance. And now we've brought it past the anterior capsule, and the remainder of the lens here is brought up into the anterior chamber. We're now going to cut this in half with a Packer-Chang 19 gauge scissor and remove it in two pieces. And you'll notice that when I take each half out, I'm going to be careful to protect the cornea endothelium with a Sinskey hook placed between the lens material and the cornea. And that'll prevent any damage to the cornea endothelium as I remove these halves. I'm now going to go after the haptic that I cut that's in the fornix of the bag. I'm going to grab this with the micrograsper and dissect the terminal bulb of the haptic out of the fornix of the capsular bag. It's important for me to do this because I want to place a toric lens right where this haptic is, and this will get in the way if I don't remove it. So I've dissected this free, and now I'm going to pull it out with the micro forceps through the main incision. We're going to clean up the capsular bag a little bit and get rid of some of this cortex lens material. And we're not going to spend too much time on this because there's not too much here, but we want to clean this up while we have the opportunity. Now we're going to reinflate the capsular bag with cohesive viscoelastic and inject the new lens, which is a Symfony toric, into the capsular bag. We're going to dial the lens into the proper position after we drop the second haptic into the capsular bag. We've marked the axis previously. And this is why it was important to remove the old lens completely, because it would have obstructed our proper placement of this new lens on the correct axis to correct astigmatism. Here we're inspecting to make sure that the haptic is under the anterior capsule. And now, because this patient has a history of glaucoma, we're going to go ahead and place a glaucose eye stent. Here I'm doing a little goniotomy with the stent to open up Schlemm's canal, and then I'll place the stent after doing about 1 clock hour of goniotomy. Now the eye stent is in good position. We'll remove the remaining viscoelastic, check the position of the toric lens, and the case is completed. We saw this patient the next day in the office, and this is his reaction to the new lens in the right eye. All right, this is Greg. We just took out a Restor that had severe subsurface nano glistenings and replaced it with a Symfony toric in the right eye yesterday. Greg, what was the problem before surgery?
Before surgery, my vision was deteriorating, both long distance and near, and I felt that I needed to have a better quality of eye vision, and decided to look to find the best to accomplish my objective. Okay. A lot of haze, and my night vision was deteriorating over time.
Well, what are you noticing the day after surgery?
Last night I can see the sharpness as my eyes were opening and clarity was coming, and I was able to clearly see the distinction between the two eyes in terms of color and clarity and distance.
Okay, so you feel like the vision's sharper and clearer now?
Absolutely.
Do you feel like that haze is gone that you were seeing before?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yes, because I can tell the difference between the two eyes.
Oh, you have a Restor in the other eye, too.
I do have, I think it was 9 or 10 years ago that the Restor was put in, and before that I had Lasik surgery.
Okay.
Like 18 years ago.
And we'll go ahead and address that if you're still happy in a couple of weeks. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.